Hello, Reveal readers and listeners. I'm Bayer Duncan, our engagement reporter. I'm here with reporter Jennifer Gollan. How's it going, Jen?
Great, thank you.
Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
We're going to talk a little bit today about Jen's recent investigation into safety at Goodyear. And let's just jump right into it. So actually, before we do, I'll just remind our viewers that if you have any questions about Jen's reporting, you can just drop them right there in the comments, and we'll try to tackle them right as they come in. So we'll start. Jen, you spent months looking into Goodyear and their safety record. Talk a little bit about sort of the general 30,000-foot findings that you came away with.
Sure. So Goodyear, we found, is one of the most dangerous manufacturers in the U.S. based on the number of people that have died on the job in their plants over the last 8 years. We found that their lax approach to safety and leaks in the roof in some of their plants have both endangered consumers on the road and workers in their plants. And
so when we're talking about the different safety problems that Goodyear has, it's sort of like two silos, basically, that you uncovered. It's like there's worker safety in the plants, and then there's safety on the roads for people who are driving with Goodyear tires. What are your how do your findings relate specifically how do they relate to worker deaths? Where does Goodyear stack up when it comes to that?
Sure. So over the last 8 years, 5 people have died at Goodyear's plants. I revise that. They are among the most dangerous manufacturers. Looking at the statistics going back 8 years, and they've had 5 people since mid-2015 who have died in their plants. And this puts them among the most dangerous manufacturers in the U.S. We took all of the fatality statistics from OSHA and analyzed it, and this is what we came up with.
And that's kind of what we're looking at here. So there's Goodyear comes in, it looks like, number 5, and there's also Nucor, Corp, U.S. Steel, Tyson Foods. You also took a look at their health and safety record, which is different. Can you just describe the distinction between just the deaths and this health and safety record? How do we sort of separate those two from each other?
Sure. So we also looked at OSHA health and safety violations imposed on the company, and we found that the company had nearly 200 health and safety and workplace safety violations. And they've paid $1.9 million in fines. And then we looked at how they rank compared to other tire manufacturers, and they've had far more violations for health and safety problems compared to their major competitors.
Yeah, we just had it pulled up a second ago. It looks like it's almost 4 times as many as the nearest competitor that they have. What actually comprises a health and safety violation? Like, how big is the range of things that might be listed as a violation like that?
Well, these can range from things that pose a hazard for workers on the job, all the way up to deaths on the job, where the company has been fined by health and safety inspectors that are both, at the state and federal level. And they'll go into these workplaces and investigate what happened after accidents.
Okay, and so it can be injuries, it can be deaths, it can be some sort of mechanical issue that's not being attended to, something like that.
That's right. And in Goodyear's case, we found that they have a long-standing history of either ignoring important workplace safety lapses or clashing with investigators who go into their plants to actually investigate.
Mm-hmm. We'll get to that in a second, but first I wanted to ask you, so, we're talking about manufacturing, which some people might just say this is a dangerous business. But your findings sort of suggest that even though there is some degree of danger or, wear and tear that ends up happening, Goodyear is sort of far and away, in some ways, more dangerous than its competitors.
That is definitely the case as far as tire manufacturers. Mm-hmm. We compared Goodyear to 4 other major tire manufacturers, and they have far and away more health and safety violations that they've been fined for. And then compared to other companies, they rank in general among the deadliest, the 5 deadliest manufacturers in the U.S. as far as workplace safety deaths. And so we were able to show why, those numbers and how those numbers actually translate in the factories themselves. And we talked to dozens of workers about the workplace safety culture and the company's approach to dealing with safety problems.
Which gets us to another question I wanted to ask you, this phrase, round and black and out the back. Can you explain the significance of that phrase and how it sort of informed the work attitudes at Goodyear?
Sure. So dozens of workers we spoke with talked about this motto that's used on the shop floor. And this is a quota-driven motto, essentially, where the company puts production over safety at times and ships out tires that are of subpar quality. Workers talked about leaks in the roof, where people are bringing in tarps to cover up machines where tires are made. And water infiltration in the tire manufacturing process is dangerous because it can lead to tire blowouts. How
does water touching tires in production lead to their deterioration or something? How exactly does that work?
Well, it poses a safety problem for consumers on the road in that it could lead to tire tread separation. And we then went and investigated some of these cases in which people have died or wound up as paraplegics as a result of these tire blowouts.
And is tread separation essentially just like a rip in the tire?
That's right.
Widthwise, lengthwise, what does a tread separation look like?
That's right, yeah. It's literally the tire coming apart as you're driving down the road. And it can cause drivers to veer off the road and cars to flip over.
Which kind of leads me to my next point, which is that we're talking about 2 separate issues here. We're talking about Goodyear's safety issues in their factories, but we're also talking about their safety issues on the road and how some of these problems, granted they're interlinked to a certain degree, but what did you find with regard to safety on the road of Goodyear tires?
Since 2011, we found that there have been 3 deadly accidents in which passengers and motorists have died as a result of tire blowouts, Goodyear tire blowouts specifically. There was a 4th case, Michigan man who wound up as a paraplegic. And these are cases in which former workers at Goodyear have testified and also gone on the record with us to say that leaks in the roof at some of Goodyear's plants and other problems as far as the company's push for production over safety have endangered consumers on the road.
Now, there was formal action taken against Goodyear based on some of the tires that they released, right? There was a recall, I think?
That's right. So in one case, 2 students who were on their way to college died in West Texas, and the Goodyear tire on the truck that they were riding in separated, causing the car to veer out of control, and the truck flipped over, killing the both of them. And Goodyear then recalled that tire, which was among 40,000 tires just like it after the accident.
So what we're seeing here now is this is a photo of Carrie Beth Hall on the left there, and Matthew Smith was, I believe, her boyfriend at the time. And what else are we seeing here? We have a text message and a photo.
That's right. So you'll see on the bottom left, there's a text message that 18-year-old Carrie Beth Hall sent to her father, Jerry, before the accident, saying, "Love you too, Daddy." And this is something that he keeps in a safe. And he pulls it out from time to time to have a look at it. And it's a reminder of their bond. They were very close. Carrie Beth was actually headed off to college before, just before the accident. She was enrolled in a paramedic program, and so she had a promising career ahead of her. And this tire blowout stopped all of that short.
I'll pause for just a moment to remind viewers that they can pose any questions about this investigation and Jen Gollan's work in the comments here, and we'll do our best to get to them during this Facebook Live. And if not during this Facebook Live, then we'll jump in the comments later as we come across them. let's pivot a little bit to Goodyear's response, both to this investigation and toward general scrutiny around their safety. So to begin, how did they respond once this investigation came out?
Hours after the investigation was published, they acknowledged that they have had some safety problems, and I can actually read a statement from them for you. They acknowledged that Goodyear's safety record was quote unquote unacceptable. They said, quote, over the past 2 years, we fell short on our own expectations for safety, and we mourn the loss of our valued coworkers. This is unacceptable, they said. And so we did publish a story based on their statement.
Did they offer up any sort of formal recommendations, internal recommendations that they made available either to you or to the public about sort of dealing with some of these safety issues that they have?
We did speak with one of their top safety officials for the original investigation, and he had said that when leaks present themselves in plants, the company works aggressively to fix them, but acknowledged that the plants are big and that it can be difficult to stay on top of. They said they are working diligently with state investigators in Virginia to rectify some of the safety problems. They had to pay a very big fine, over $1 million, after a string of accidents in which 4 workers died in a year at their Virginia plant. And so they say they're working diligently to try to fix those problems.
And before we wrap up here, I did want to ask you, we discussed the response to this particular investigation, but you mentioned in your story that Goodyear has a reputation for being, maybe you would say, difficult when it comes to external scrutiny on their processes. You listed a few examples in your story of how they maybe drag their feet on investigations. Can you kind of characterize what their modus operandi is for when they're facing sort of scrutiny or criticism?
Sure. They over and over again, the files show and the documents show that they've clashed with investigators. When investigators have gone in to find out how certain workers died or were injured, the company has proved quite recalcitrant. One example is Billy Shire, who was killed by a massive tire machine. He was pinned down in the machine as he was trying to fix a switch, and the machine hadn't been completely shut down when he started work. And when investigators went into this Virginia plant to find out how exactly he died, the company's safety official told them, the investigators, that they could not shut down that machine because it would interfere with production. So this is an example of where the company's priorities lie. And the state investigators in this case ended up having to get a search warrant to complete their investigation.
I see. We have one message. Oh, okay. I think we're going to wrap it up there, and I just want to remind our viewers and our readers that you can find Jen Gollan's investigation into Goodyear, as well as a follow-up piece about a worker death and all of the different impacts that the investigation has yielded over on revealnews.org. And if you have any questions around either this discussion we had or Jen's investigation as a whole, drop them in the comments. We'll get in there and answer them for you. And I just want to thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time. Thanks so much.